Namaste, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Bharatvaarta Weekly. Thank you for choosing to skip the news and watch the weekly instead. I have a stellar lineup of guests today. So I have Rohit Jaraman joining us today, and I have Srivatsa Subana. Hi, Rohit. Hi, Vatsa. How are you guys doing?
Hey Roshan, doing good. Thanks for having me back.
Hi,
Thanks
Carrie.
for being back, Rohit. Hi, Vatsa. All right, so it's a sunny morning, good enough for us to run through the news and events of the week that was. But first, let's take a look at a couple of episodes that we put out last week. We had a couple of really nice episodes, both based on book discussions. I'll take the first one. The one with Rajiv Malhotra was an epic podcast and some sort of a personal milestone for me. I mean, it's not often that you meet your heroes in real life, and it was amazing to talk to the man who's had such a deep impact on my life. I remember picking up his book about 9 or 10 years back, Being Different, and it entirely changed my um, framework of thinking. About a lot of our things that we take for granted. Um, and also he's been sort of an original thinker, right? I mean, he's talked about plenty of these things way before their time, way before they become common parlance. And this episode, he was right about forewarning about all the threats of AI and the impact that it's going to have on India as such. And I hope that people do take it seriously and prepare for it. So yeah, the one with Rajiv ji was absolutely amazing. What do you think about the one with Shakti Sinha ji?
I think it was phenomenal. I mean, it's one of the most lovely conversations, I've had on Bharatvaarta, hosting an episode. And it's a great book as well. The thing about the book is it's on contemporary history, and something he also mentioned that nowadays you hear media and opposition leaders talk about Vajpayee ji's time as prime minister as sort of a golden era, in the sense that there were no differences and everything was nice, and he was treated very nicely by allies and opposition, but it was not really the case. In fact, if you were to draw parallels between the Pokhran nuclear blasts and the surgical attacks, the response of Congress, the principal opposition, has been fairly similar, in the sense that then they gave all the credit to the scientists without talking about the government at all. And now they say, oh, the army has done a great job, without mentioning the government, without whose political will none of this would have been possible. And it doesn't take you to be a Harvard professor to realize that some of these things are kind of repeating from that time. So it's good to have a very factual account of contemporary history in that sense. And the book has a lot of detail. It brings up a lot of facts and figures, which weaves in nicely with the overall story. It's a pity that it's only about 3 years. I mean, if someone could write a detailed book, about the time from 99 to 2004, it would similarly be a great read.
Yep. And he's said that he'll follow up this book with another one. So hopefully, I mean, that will come true, right? So, yeah. Moving on to the first piece of news from the week that was the Air Force acquired 83 Tejas fighter jets in the largest indigenous defense procurement deal. The deal, worth about 48,000 crores, was cleared on Wednesday. The Tejas Mk-1A fighters will be manufactured by HAL, with the 83 jets adding to the existing arsenal of 40 Tejas fighters. The new aircraft will have features such as an active electronically scanned array radar, beyond visual range air to air missiles, an advanced electronic warfare suite, and air to air refueling capability. Rohit, what does this mean for indigenous manufacturers as such?
Thanks, Carrie. I think this has been something that's broadly been seen across the commentariat, right? I mean, it's obviously a huge milestone that today we've made this very big order, and it reflects a couple of things, right? I mean, the obvious one is, of course, that there's a huge ecosystem that is coming up. I mean, what you can see on the screen right now, just see the amount of companies that have been involved in this, both as a production partner and at the larger ecosystem, the sheer number, the breadth across India. So obviously that is something, because at the end of the day, if you're planning to have some sort of a defense industry in the country, then your own it's your own forces who will be your biggest customers, right? I mean, when you're talking about the Rafale today, the Rafale used by primarily by the French Air Force. I mean, yes, 3, 4 other countries other than India also use it, but at the end of the day, you can develop your own indigenous ecosystem, defense ecosystem only if your forces are basically your sort of like a captive market. And I'm not saying that we are at that stage where we can be so sure that we will use only indigenous products, but you will never reach that stage, and that's it's very clear that that's always been the goal, right? So it's a huge step up for us in that regard, and that way it's a milestone. And I think there are a couple of strategic factors one needs to look at right here, in the sense that there was this news that came out just a couple of days back about the US blocking, saying that India will not get a waiver from your S4 from US sanctions if they buy the S400 from Russia. Now that really shows to us how important it is that we have a indigenous system, because uh, foreign politics is always complicated, right? Especially when you're dealing with democracies and where there can be change of governments. You don't know how the next government will look at, and you really don't want your uh, industry. You really don't want your industry defense to be reliant on the whims and fancies of foreign governments. I think clearly the recent election result in the US has played a role in why this sort of news has come out on the S400. So that's where I think it's very important for India, both as and the other thing, of course, the multiplier effect, right? If you have indigenous production, then it's your country's suppliers who are benefiting, and the money that whatever spent on this is actually some sort of a stimulus, right? The money goes into India; it doesn't go somewhere else. So these are the two big things why indigenization of defense is very important, and I think this is obviously the biggest step up that's happened in this regard for a while.
Right. All right, moving on. Hey, Rohit, I think I'm hearing a little bit of echo at your end. Okay. The RBI will set up a committee on digital lending platforms. They announced on Wednesday that they will set up a group to suggest regulatory measures in the realm of digital lending. While the regulator mentioned that they welcome digital methods in financial sector, downside risks are often interwoven into these new offerings. The committee will consist of both internal and external members, with notable names including Monexo FinTech co founder Vikram Mehta and Rahul Sashi, a cybersecurity expert. Uh, what's up? We've seen a lot of these digital lending startups coming out. How do you think this will impact any of these companies?
Right. So I think this has been in the works for a while. I think digital lending sort of took off after the pandemic hit us. But what also happened was uh, because of the pandemic, there were also a lot of bounces, so people were not making payments on time, and that was the time that RBI actually started taking notice of these digital platforms, and because they had, I think, 2 or 3x the bounce rate of regular lenders. So that's how it started. Then sometime in June, RBI told NBFCs and ask the digital lending platforms to disclose who their partners were uh, at the time of making the loan. So the borrower should know from which NBFC he or she is ultimately taking a loan. Uh, this went on, and sometime from November to Jan, we saw Google take off a lot of lending apps from the Play Store. Most of these were of Chinese origin, and they had a lot of issues in the sense that they charged a high amount of fees, upfront fees, and they would start harassing and calling people even if they were delayed by their, in their payments by a day, and so on. So the RBI took notice of that, and many of these apps are now gone from the Play Store. Now, coming back to this particular step, see, one thing is clear. I think digitization in lending is only going to increase, especially when it comes to the sourcing and the application part. Uh, you will see more and more people applying for loans online, getting approved online, getting loans approved online. Uh, so this brings in few aspects which should be considered. One is when people apply for a loan, they submit a lot of documents. Their, you know, PII, personally identifiable information, such as Aadhaar card, PAN card, and so on. Uh, and unfortunately, Indian NBFCs have not been regulated the same way as banks have. And the digital lending apps have generally tied up with some of the quote unquote unscrupulous kind of NBFCs. So there is a huge fraud risk. I mean, there have been cases that I'm aware of where people's documents have been used to take loans on their behalf, or documents are sent from a district office to a regional head office through post, and or in a bus or something. So there are a lot of ways where areas where fraud can happen. The other thing is, lot of digital lending platforms, they focused more on the origination side. But lending in India is also about the last mile, which is collections, and you actually need feet on the ground to be able to collect, and collect in a humane way, empathizing with the borrower. There are sometimes genuine reasons why people can't, pay on time. A lot of these apps had access to a lot of personal information of borrowers, and there have been cases where they've created WhatsApp groups with relatives, sort of phone numbers, and then humiliated them in front of relatives. So it's not been all good behavior from some of these apps. Then there is this other angle, because a lot of these are not based out of India. This could be laundered money, which again presents other forms of risk. So I think it's a good step that the RBI is forming this committee, and having a company like CloudSec, which kind of specializes in cyber security. So the fraud kind of angle is taken care of, and we have to make sure that people's documents and whatever they submit, it's safe. At the same time, the algorithms that are created, and the permission some of these apps seek from the borrowers, they are reasonable and they don't go over the board, and the data of the borrowers is not misused. So overall, I think that's what they are looking for. And also, anyone who is lending, I think, should be regulated at the same level as banks are. They should be held to the same level of accountability, because underlying all of this lending, it's still the same banking system. The money flows at the end within the banking system, and if there are large defaults with any NBFC, it has an impact on the overall financial system. So yeah, these are my thoughts. I think it's a good first step. Let's see what some of the recommendations are that come out of this.
Yeah, very comprehensive overview, Vatsa. All right, before we move on to the next piece of news, I mean, some of the people on chat are asking us to comment on Shardul Thakur. So, Rohit or Vatsa, I mean, do you guys want to take this up? One or two lines on Shardul Thakur's excellent batting?
See, I mean, Shardul Thakur got cancelled, I think, the moment he took the number 10 jersey in his first game. He was cancelled by cricket fans at that time. Having said, I think he's done a good job in this game. Hopefully, somehow we managed to draw this one.
All right, fantastic. Moving on. Uh, Amazing news from last week. Tesla has registered a fully owned subsidiary in Bangalore. The EV company is exploring the possibility of setting up an R&D center here, based in the city. It's also in talks with the Karnataka government to set up an assembly plant at Dharwad. In October of last year, Elon Musk announced that he would be launching in the country soon. Union Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari ji revealed that Tesla would be arriving in early 2021. Tesla has been trying to enter the Indian market since 2016, but has been unsuccessful. The top selling car, the Model 3, is set to sell in India at a markup of over 70% in the country. Rohit, planning to book your Tesla?
No, not really. But I think this is a big one, right, Carrie? I mean,
Yeah.
and there are a couple of reasons for that. The first one is that it's not very common that a foreign manufacturer actually starts setting up shop in India with a clear eye of manufacturing even before the company is actually really taken off in India recently, especially the luxury cars. See, what you've seen generally for a while is people slowly import it, and you get a sales network, and finally when they realize that there's actually enough, they start some sort of manufacturing setup. So obviously this is pretty big for India, that Tesla's planning to start some sort of a fully fledged setup right from day one. So that's a huge vote of confidence, I would say, in how the country is being receptive to manufacturing these days. The other thing, of course, is electric cars are the future, right? I mean, everyone's talking about electric cars. They are the buzzword today. And just like what we spoke about Tejas, uh, I mean, having Tesla here, nothing's going to be more give a bigger boost to the whole ecosystem of electric cars and electric vehicles. I mean, nothing can really match having a Tesla operation in India, right? So from an Indian perspective, also to be more at the cutting edge of something that's the future, because uh, something that's the future is a huge boost for the Indian electronic manufacturing setup. So I think that's where we should really take big positives, and let's see how this actually plays out, because of course registering a subsidiary is a very small thing in the
Yeah.
larger scheme of things before. And as you can say, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. Now I just put on my Vatsa hat and say how this is a big boost for Karnataka, that this is actually happening in Karnataka. But again, I think that's like this is another vote of confidence as to why we also focus so much on how things are moving in Karnataka, right? I mean, at Bharatvaarta, because it's clearly due to a variety of reasons, Karnataka seems to have emerged as one of the go-to states in India for, or probably the go-to state in India for some of the more advanced projects. And that's, I think, due to a combination of reasons. I don't want to go too much on a weekly, but it's one more big boost, I would say, to a government that's been pretty proactive in the last 1.5 years on getting things moving in the state.
Yeah. So Vatsa is showing some phenomenal restraint to
Yeah.
to hold himself back, literally. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
Vatsa covered some of this in his year-end special, and he's spoken at length about all of the developments that the BSY government is doing on this front. Please be sure to check that out for more context. All right. Moving on. Not to be left behind, the Indian Army has awarded a $20 million deal to drone maker Idea Forge. This deal is for an undisclosed amount of their high altitude tactical drones. The company won the contract after competing with top Israeli manufacturer Elbit, among others. The drones are likely to be used by the Army's infantry soldiers and special forces in Ladakh. They will carry out intelligence, surveillance, and recon. The company made a statement that the products will be delivered within 1 year. It was the only manufacturer that qualified the operational requirements for a fast track procurement. What's up? After the Air Force, we have this coming in literally the same week. What's happening?
Something very good. I'll just start off with a bit of trivia about this company, Idea Forge. So, if you've seen the movie Three Idiots, there is a quadcopter that Amir Khan builds in that movie. These guys were the ones who actually built that prototype, and from there they've kind of gone on to start this company, Idea Forge, and it's been over a decade. So a pretty successful company in that sense, and they've now reached a stage where they're supplying drones to the army. Uh, so I mean, the thing with India's entire view when it comes to drones has changed significantly over the last few years. There are a lot of obvious civilian users where the drones have taken off. I remember during one of the forest fires where the forest officials were asking for people who had drones to come in and help, so that they could survey the damage very quickly instead of physically having to go and risk lives and so on. We also have created this drones directorate. So civilian use of drones is now kind of more regulated, which is a good thing for companies like IdeaForge, which primarily have a lot of customers when it comes to the civilian users. So if you, for instance, want to check, how much coal, if NTPC wants to check how much coal do they have in stock, they can easily use a drone now to survey it and check it. Similarly, one of the earlier episodes we had spoken about Swamitwa, which was about surveying the land. And again, IdeaForge is a company which won contracts in 6 states, and their drones were used to survey, the land. Uh, so coming to this particular drone that the Indian government has procured, it works in all weather conditions and can be used for surveillance. IdeaForge also has built or co-developed technology whereby the data that is captured by the drone can be analyzed in near real time, using AI, and insights can be sent directly to the army. uh, and all of this is built in India, which I think at some point, obviously, there will be demand from friendly countries that they would also want to procure some of these drones, not just for military purposes, but also for civilian and industrial uses. Uh, See, the use of drones when it comes to armed warfare is only going to increase. These are mostly survey and reconnaissance kind of drones. But at some point, I think we will indigenously also develop drones that are capable of, dropping bombs and missiles and so on, because it obviously reduces, the risk of human casualty on our side. And also, drones can be far more accurate and can be controlled remotely. uh, I think it's a good step, not just in the sense that the army is going for more tech, but the fact that the army is actually tying up with a company that is 10 years old, fast tracking its product and actually going to use it in combat situations, for reconnaissance and so on. So I think it will give heart to a lot of startups and some of the newer companies, that they can work, build something in India that can be used by the Indian armed forces.
All right. The New Delhi railway station is set to get a 50 billion rupee makeover. The new station comes after the center announced the Central Vista plan for Central Delhi, which we covered, I think, in one of the weeklies before. The station will integrate different modes of transport. It will also include multiple amenities and retail spaces adjoining the station itself. It will comprise a dome shaped terminal building, perhaps many of those, two multimodal transport hubs, 40-floor high rise twin towers, and a pedestrian boulevard with shopping. Rohit, what do you think about this development?
Carrie, I think this is like railways has really been one place where a lot of infrastructures development and new ideas has come about over the last 6 years of this government, right? I would say almost 7 years now, with as we are now into 2021. I think starting right from how all the high speed trains. I'm leaving the bullet train aside for now, but even your Tejas Express. Then there was this initial redevelopment of a lot of stations that's already happened. I mean, and this has happened across the country, right? Like stations do look quite a large number of them do look very different from how they looked even say 6 years ago. So this is another step in that, and I think the larger picture is very simple, right? The idea is to create some sort of a setup where people actually, your higher end customer also travels a lot on trains. Like as most of us know, passenger passenger fares are heavily subsidized, right? And that's mostly been subsidized by freight. The idea here clearly is to get provide more facilities and get higher end customers to sort of use trains wherever you can. And with your freight corridors, etc., you're now able to, even on your old tracks, run higher speeds. So that's where I think there's going to be lesser of a load on. Like clearly, the railways is competing with air, and that's I think a huge change in mindset that's happened. I mean, to be fair, even the last government did things on and off about it, but this has been a clearly focused attempt. And the second thing really is this is about space utilization, right? The railways has a crazy amount of space, land all over India in prime locations. Obviously, if you redevelop it in something like this, you're able to unlock a lot of it in terms of real estate, and that's something obviously which will of course fund the railways more and more when they want to take up new projects, new lines. I mean, there's a lot of scope even today for more new lines, doubling, etc. So this is clearly uh, an idea with two long-term visions. One is unlocking value, and the other is to continue getting your more well-off customers to try and shift to train.
Yeah, I think had Ashish been there, you would have noticed it looks very similar to a building in Pune. But yeah, let's not talk about it.
Yeah, you're going to get some biting comments on YouTube. So, all right, the last piece of news that we want to cover, WhatsApp has delayed its privacy policy rollout by 3 months after massive user backlash. Over the last week, WhatsApp users have been receiving a pop-up that asked them to accept the new privacy policy or have their accounts suspended by February 8th. On Friday, they announced that they would be pushing back the date to May while clearing up misconceptions about their update. A majority of users have shifted to more secure apps like Signal and Telegram. The messaging app has over 400 million users in India. What's up? Have you shifted to Signal yet?
No, but I've been on Telegram for a while, and yeah, I think WhatsApp has kind of. I think, see, the thing is, Facebook has a bad name in itself when it comes to privacy and the way they have literally foisted things on users. And this time they're kind of bearing the brunt of some miscommunication themselves. The changes are not that bad, but because one of the things that that's been said is that Facebook, I mean, WhatsApp data will be shared with Facebook users. uh, but that's already happening. I mean,
Yeah, it's already the case.
there was a 1 month window in 2016 where you could explicitly opt out. So if you joined WhatsApp after that, or if you deleted an account and come on after that, your data is already going to Facebook. The only changes are with respect to payments and business accounts. Ashish covered this actually quite in detail in the last weekly. uh, so yeah, I mean, the if you're not interacting with businesses on WhatsApp and you're not using WhatsApp Pay, not a lot actually changes for you. But yeah, I mean, for once it's kind of nice that they've had to go through what they've made others go through.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to see some retribution on that front, I
Yeah.
feel, right? Keeps them on the straight and narrow. All right, guys. So next week we have a couple of blockbuster episodes coming up. We have one with Anand Ranganathan, who's a very popular commentator. I'm sure many of you know. So we'll be having a candid conversation about everything that's happening today in India, and would love to get his thoughts on that. And also we have an equally special discussion on author Amish Tripathi and Bhavna Roy's book Dharma, which is again, I think, scheduled for later this week. Both of these promise to be excellent discussions. Do tune in, and yeah, Hope to see you on another podcast. For now, thank you so much for choosing to skip the news and watch the weekly instead. From Vatsa, Rohit, and I, have an excellent week ahead. Stay safe, take care, and Jai Hind.